Hey everyone, I'm Mike Mack from laughingplace.com, and I'm so excited to be chatting with some of the incredibly talented visual effects artists from Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Can you just walk me through what a typical day was like working on this movie? Whether there was a specific subsection of the movie that you worked on, or maybe there was no typical day. Maybe it was just all over the place each time you went out there.
Well, it's interesting because I'm on the Marvel production side, so I work with James and the studio, and so I'm here doing the prep and the shoot and post production. So it's all a little bit different depending on which phase of the movie it's in. Um, I would say prep is a lot of meetings, a lot of figuring out, breaking down the script and doing all the bidding process and talking to all these amazing vendors we ended up working with, and also figuring out James' vision, figuring out everything with the production designer, the DP, the stunts, the costume people, all that stuff. And so that's the beginning. Then we prep the film, then we shoot the film, and it's a film shoot, so you early start, very late finish. Lots of crazy stuff going on every day, but also we start building stuff with the vendors already in that time. So I have reviews with the vendors. There's a lot of work that has been done also in preparation on the previews of the film, working with James and the previous team together. And so we do the shoot, and then in post is it's you have an edit, you start turning over the shots to the vendors, and you start doing reviews all the time with the vendors. Like my days are mostly reviews. Start very early in the morning talking to the people in London, and finish later in the afternoon talking to the people in New Zealand. And in the middle, I have our friends from the Americas, and then we have reviews with James and the editors and the studio. And we build a movie like that, and it's more office work at that time, but it's very military actually. We need to be extremely organized for when you have a show like that where there's like more than 3,000 visual effects shots and about 10 vendors on the show from everywhere in the world, and you have a Christmas special to do at the same time with 600 shots in it. It's there's not much time for funny things. The funny thing is making the films, so it's that's my typical kind of days.
Yeah, just like it depends on the stage that Steph's in when he's doing pre-production and production. It varies for us as vendors as well. So at the beginning, there's bidding, you're looking at storyboards and everything like that, and trying to plan out your team and build it up. And then shortly thereafter, you're building assets. So you're spending most of your time with meetings with artists that are like, building the characters, modelers, the texture painters, the look dev artists, things like that. And then as you get into the shot work, then you start dealing a little bit more with animation and the effects artists and the lighters and the compositors. And then by the end, you've pretty much mostly done the work in the other departments. So most of your animation is complete by that point, and you're really just focused in on the compositing and the lighting at that stage, trying to finish it up. But working on a James Gunn film is a little bit unique. Every director is a little bit different, but he's very I think it helps that he writes his stories as well, and he has a pretty clear vision from when he begins it all the way to the end. So when you look at our final shots compared to how they're previs, and which is he worked with Stefan, it's very close to that. The final product's very close to how he originally envisioned it. So there's a lot of even though the production stage is, there's a lot of things come up, things you didn't think were going to be hard or resources or difficult to manage. At least we could count on the constant of the story not really changing out from underneath us, which is great.
The typical day, like these guys are talking about, you wake up in the morning. In my case, you come in just right before your first meeting, and you have your producer tell you off for always being 1 minute early and not any earlier than that. You sneak a coffee in, you meet with a team in the morning to sort of make sure that the progress from the previous night, all the renders that went overnight, you're seeing what happened, and sort of sculpting how the rest of the day is going to go, giving people direction so that you can refine some of the stuff that's been done, or you can go ahead and send it on to the next step so that it can go into further along that chain of completion. The middle of the day is met with a lot of, to Theo's point, a lot of resource management, a lot of just for lack of a better way to put it, we always joke about it's herding cats. It's trying to take these hundreds of disparate entities that have their own passions, their own creativities, and try to bring them together and make sure that we're all marching to a single line. And then in the afternoon, you circle back once again to make sure that the progress of the day was good. And then you finish off the day by basically saying, all right, well, this stuff looks cool enough that we want to bundle it up and send it off to Steph and see what he thinks. And then you wake up the next morning, have a call with Steph, and you rinse and repeat the entire process. And then hopefully by the time that the money and time runs out, you have an entire movie and not just most of the movie.
What was it like working on the different stages of Rocket for this movie? That character was so real and so heartbreaking throughout this story. Were there any particular challenges on working with this character?
We had some designs that James had kind of done. He had done some little drawings, and also the Viz Dev department at Marvel, based on instructions from James, had done kind of phases of how Rocket would be. So my first thing was try to nailing James. That was the first meeting I had with him when he came back from having finished Peacemaker, actually. Was like, so what does Rocket look like in each and every scene in the flashback? So we could establish the story of his evolution from, that little, very little raccoon that actually was inspired by a picture I had of James from the first film in my office in London at the time, when we had a baby raccoon that came on in my office with another raccoon called Oreo, who was the base for Rocket. And I had that picture of James with that little raccoon, and then everything was based off growing from that. And I shared it with Alexi, by the way. And for me, my thing was like, okay, what are the key moments, the key points of his evolution, and why in that scene he needs to have that thing that transformed his shoulders, all that stuff. So I kind of worked that out with the beats of the different story point, and then we talked with Alexi and his team, and then they started taking it over, and you had a pretty interesting process making that happen.
We have all of these drawings from our department, from the Marvel side, and then we start building Rocket. So we started with the runs, with the nice picture of James Gunn having this little really tiny raccoon. So we know the scale, and we actually created what we call a blend shape, which is with the real Rocket, because we all know what the real Rocket looks like because we already built it. So we add the assets. So that was a great starting point. We knew what the little baby was supposed to look like. It's just a real raccoon. And we knew what was the end result. So then we blend shaped, and we learned a lot from that blend shape, because you were seeing the whole transformation with the shoulders being created, the thumb being extruded, his posture from a character on all four to a bipedal character. All of that, we were learning from that. Plus, we had that chart that Steph just talked about, where we knew what kind of height was Rocket at different age. And so we pressed some screen grab of this blend shape at this different height to know how his face did evolve. And we learned a lot from there. And then we obviously had to groom this asset. And we were thinking, okay, the little runt was slightly brighter. Of course, we kept the marking of Rocket because that's so much the character. But then we felt, okay, if at a younger age the groom would be slightly different, maybe less dense, maybe brighter. So we started to put all of these components into the different age. Of course, the implants, we were so important to tell the stories that he slowly become more and more human. And then we of course, the way that Steph and James shot it was they started the shoot. The first 2 days of the shoot were all this flashback, and they shot it into some kind of mock-up stage environment with the real actors, with Sean Gunn playing Rocket Raccoon. And so we had all of that already. So we knew what kind of performance we needed to do with the different ages. So we put all our little asset development into the right story with the right bits and how much evolved they were supposed to be. So at the very beginning, of course, Rocket Raccoon, after his first transformation, is still on the ground on all four. Actually, you can see his scalp and all of that. So we built the assets knowing what the sequence was, which was incredibly useful.
And now we have some of the incredibly talented makeup and hair department artists who worked on the film. Lindsay, I'd like to start with you. This movie broke the record for the most prosthetics used in a film with over 22,000. Was that something you were aware of as you were working on the movie?
We track everything, so we knew it was going to be big, but we didn't know it was going to be that big until after we were towards the end, and we started to let's just count up just out of fun. Let's see what it was, and it was like, oh my gosh, it really was phenomenal. But you don't think about these things when you take on a job. You're just like, this is a fun job. This is really cool stuff to do. So it was a really pleasant surprise to find that we'd broken that record. It was a massive undertaking here because there was 160 of us here doing the work, building all that stuff, and then going to set and then applying it, and, the hair and the makeup. So it's a great group effort to do that kind of stuff.
Alexi and Cassie, I want to ask both of you, which character was the most challenging to work on? Because obviously there were a lot of really, really impressive looks in this movie.
I really enjoyed working on the High Evolutionary. I really liked because it's unique that we got to do 3 different stages of his makeup, right? And really 3.5 stages if you do the behind the scenes, right? Or the outtakes that was on the special DVD. But yeah, James tells an amazing space opera, and it has so much humanity and heart to it. So to really see how he transitioned and to tell that story, Rocket attacked him, and then all of a sudden he's got his face is a different way, and all the reasons, like, it all made sense. It wasn't just done just because it was, thrown out there. Like, it all had purpose. And so I think that was to get those makeups and to get everything really nice and clean on him, and to make sure that Chakudi Awuji, our actor, got to emote, and you got to see all of his emotion come out through the makeup. I think that was a good challenge, and I was really happy with the result of it. And then also our humanimals, when we got to that was a whole nother challenge, because the sheer volume of it and the complexity of those makeups were a real great challenge.
Yeah, you know what? But the most fun kind of challenge. It was like, as an artist, you're getting these things. We were pulling them out of the box as they were coming in, and we were seeing just the incredible wigs that were made at Legacy. And they were all just these custom, beautiful one-off pieces. And so the challenge, of course, in itself was, okay, these all look like puzzle pieces, because, a wig normally is it's a shape. It's like a full figure shape. And these, because they were designed all around the prosthetics, and Legacy did this incredible thing where the ears could remove. And so all of the wigs were built around these removable ears. And so essentially these wigs were laying flat. So for us, we would get them and we would be going, okay, how are we puzzle piecing this together? So we would be working with Alexi and his team, like, hey, can we borrow the mold so that we can see exactly, like, on the day, how are we going to glue this? How are we doing this? Because everything was over a bald cap, so there was no pinning. So the hair prep was very precise, and we had to make sure that thing was staying on, because a lot of them were stunts. And so we had a lot of people, getting shoved off motorcycles or getting beat in an alley. And so we had to make sure that everything was staying. And so I would say a challenge, but a rise to the challenge indeed, because it was so much fun.
Obviously, it was a really emotional experience for the cast wrapping up the trilogy, but you all worked with these characters over multiple films as well. What was that experience like for you wrapping up this 3rd film? Doing these movies, you grow together and you're friends, and you have your friends that are on set. And so when the movie finishes, just in general, it's you miss everybody, and you miss the characters, and you miss the team you're working with, and so they'll never be that far away. They'll always be, you can always go back and watch the movie again. But I missed it. I have to say, I had a great time on this movie. It was probably one of my most enjoyable experiences, and working with these guys, they're just
fantastic collaborators, and I can't say enough about it. It was just a beautiful time to work together.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an honor to have these opportunities to work on these films and Marvel films and but also the Guardian films in general, because they are, you know, not only do they portray a sense of family, but we also have a sense of family with our actors that we're working with, and also within our community of, you know, we had so many hair and makeup people, and we're all sharing ideas, and we're all doing all the, you know, we had so much variety on this movie, and so much you know, we really wanted to focus on the quality. So you know, I'm just so lucky that I got to be a part of it all, and you know, I love these characters. I love these characters so much. I loved it since the very first time I saw them. I was like, oh, wow, I want to work on that movie. And then cut to here we are, and it's really a pinch me moment. It's a highlight of my career. The Guardians 3, I would say, yeah, for sure.
Well, I was new to the Guardians family. I was probably one of the newest, to be honest. And even in like my initial interviews, it was like, this is how we are. We're very family oriented. We communicate. We're all these things. And so, you know, I knew going into this that it was going to be that way. And I felt so grateful that everyone welcomed me in so wholeheartedly. So for me, when this ended, even though I was newer to the family, it still felt just as emotional. And I got to be with Zoe on her last day as Gamora, and because her normal hair person had to leave early, and so I got to be with her on that last day, and it was really emotional being with her and being with, you know, Team Gamora, who'd been with her for a really long time as well, Will and Vera, and being, I think, in that camp, I was like, wow, this is really emotional. I'm emotional. Everyone's emotional. And it was really neat to be a part of such a family, because that's sort of how James Gunn does everything. And, you know, there's this family on screen, this sort of like rough, tough family on screen, and then it's how it is off screen. So yeah, I was really grateful to be part of that.
You were working simultaneously on the holiday special, right? While you were shooting the third film here.
Yeah, well, you know, we went back to, especially like for Nebula, we went back to her Avengers, her more Avengers look. So she had the cybernetic eye on and everything like that. So it was just a lot of prep and making sure that we had to run those pieces again. We had to, you know, revisit that look, because we changed it we changed the way her makeup was applied for volume 3, and so we had to go back to the way that was, you know, previously. And you know, it's just planning. I mean, it's the same. You know, it was a lot more bells and Christmassy stuff. so that was one of the bigger differences. But the band was really awesome. They came in, and we got to, you know, meet them and put appliance on, and kind of we figured out what worked for them and what characters and creatures worked for them. So it was cool. It was a cool fresh breath of, and it was cool to see the sets decorated in a completely different way and everything. So yeah, it was a really awesome to be able to put that in, you know, shoot that while we're filming this big thing. I mean, it was really cool.
I love Christmas. Like I've always wanted to work on a Christmas movie. And when they said we're simultaneously doing a Christmas special, I was like, oh, did I manifest this? I was so excited. So my experience was like, I walked onto the set that Beth Mickle did, because, you know, it was literally from one day to the next. We were in Planet Nowhere, and then suddenly I walked in and they turned the Christmas on, and I was like, I cried. I literally cried. And then there was this moment when Kevin Bacon was singing with the band and everyone was dancing. I was weeping because I'm such a nerd. And I was like, I can't believe we're doing this. This is the craziest thing ever. We're doing a Christmas special, you guys. And maybe I was alone in that, and everybody was probably making fun of me, but I was so happy with everything. But like Alexi said, with Nebula, you know, we were going back and forth, because I think that the Christmas special, I hope I'm right, the Christmas special took place after Thor. but before this movie. And so we were kind of going like, okay, well, what did Mantis look like in Thor? What did everyone look, how are we incorporating all of this? Plus, with all of our background, because of COVID, we had people coming in and out all the time. And so we were having to match everyone. And so that was a challenge in itself, trying to keep, each alien. We had like a charts beyond belief that you can imagine of who and what could have been in every single scene, and how we were going to match those aliens to the holiday special, because keeping in mind that you were going to see all of these people, Christmas of last year, and then we would be seeing Guardians 3 in May. So we didn't want to give too much away, at least I don't think so. And so we were kind of trying to do this balance of how do we skip back and forth to this, and who has COVID and who doesn't have COVID? How do we match these people?
We did do we pre-painted the alien Ravager appliances differently for a lot of the characters that are in the Christmas special compared to the rest of it. It was actually Alexi's idea to try and let's take this moment and make them look a little different than we have done in the past, and that'll kind of help differentiate the two times. And so that was actually a lot of fun for the team here. It was like, okay, let's change it up a little bit, and then sending it to Atlanta for the team there to then take it to the finishing line by adding more to it. So I think for me it was, the Christmas special was fun from that perspective, that we actually got to do a little bit different within the world of the full movie.